My name is Jada, and I went to Pace University for musical theater from 2014 to 2018. So in 2013 and 2014, I decided that I was going to Pace. There were no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I only auditioned for 2 musical theater schools because I knew that was it. I was going to Pace. I heard that it was, being considered one of the best in the country, and it was in New York City. And so that was it. That was it for me. I was gonna either go there or NYU, but Pace was my dream school. And finding out that I got into Pace was a monumentously happy day. I was so excited. It was set up to be this school where, the alternative musical theater kid with exceptional talent would choose to go to school if they were allowed in, right? And so I thought to myself, I'm a little quirky, I'm a little weird, I love New York City, and I think I've got the stuff. And all of that was validated once I was accepted. And my philosophy on musical theater, since I was old enough to realize that my race was going to affect me for the rest of my life and everything that I did, my philosophy on musical theater became, I don't give a fuck about what you think I am or about what I am. I'm going to do the things that I want to do, and that's just going to be what it is. And I've always had the hope that I would be able to transcend the expectations of Black women in the industry. I can boil it down like this. There are expectations for Black people and there are expectations for women. And Black people are expected to sing the songs from Black musicals, period. That wasn't what I was going to do. And women are expected to wear jewel tone dresses and character heels. And I sure as hell wasn't doing that either. So when I heard that Pace and the head of the musical theater program was not into upholding these expectations for Black people and for women in the industry, I thought, that's a no-brainer, I'm going to go there. The day that I found out that I was accepted into Pace, I was actually in New York City for an audition for another school. I got the call a couple hours for the audition, and I didn't go to that other audition because I was like, this is it. This is my dream. It's been accomplished. Let's go. And my goal of breaking social norms in musical theater was supposed to be fostered by Pace University. It was a place where I was supposed to be able to go to explore myself outside of the norms and expectations of Black women in the industry. It was made evident to me very early on that that goal of mine was not only unimportant, but absolutely impossible. And there was no way that I was going to be able to change the world. But it was made evident to me that I had to put my head down and exist as instructed, not as I wanted to. My history and rep teacher taught us the history of musical theater, and one day we covered the history of the Cotton Club, which was a club where African-American people were employed to perform. She conflated the Cotton Club with being an amazing opportunity for Black people to perform. When she said this, immediately I knew that I had to speak up and let her know that not only should she not make any type of statement about what the Cotton Club is or did mean to Black people, but that she was inherently incorrect and that it was not an amazing opportunity for Black people to be performing. They were still being disrespected. They were given crumbs, and allowed to perform in white spaces for white people and made to feel lucky for that. That is not an amazing opportunity. I felt silly almost having to explain this to a grown woman. I was met with indifference. I was also met with an argumentative tone. She wanted to argue with me that she was absolutely and totally correct. How could it be that Black people were not so grateful for the opportunity of working at the Cotton Club, which its namesake even should make you think twice about saying that it was an amazing opportunity and place for Black people to be employed. So having a teacher, again, who I was supposed to trust, and of course I did trust, tell a classroom full of students that a racist time in history was supposed to be revered as something incredible was very confusing, especially after I essentially gave her an opportunity to retract her statement by letting her know that that was not the case. But I accepted it so as to protect myself. And, I never made excuses for her after that first incident. It became evident to me who she was and what she was about, which she further proved in constantly bragging about her racial ambiguity, even though she is white. And yeah, it's unfortunate that the responsibility of calling out an educator rested on the shoulders of the students. And mind you, the white students, God love them, they had nothing to say. And not only were they being miseducated, further than they had already been, they were then watching a white professor get into, a war of words with a young Black student who, she essentially normalized that type of behavior with the Black students. So there are a few musicals that are traditionally sung and performed by Black people because they are written for Black people and about Black people and Black experiences. To have a white woman stand in front of a classroom of people and say that she should be allowed to sing Black songs that are specific to the Black experience is mind-boggling, to say the least, and a slap in the face, again, to say the least. And having to be the person who stands up and says, you are incorrect, and to have her very aggressively question why I feel that way was embarrassing and heartbreaking all at the same time. At this point, expectations only get you so far. It is school ultimately, and I'm very pragmatic and a realist, and at the end of the day, people are going to let you down, but to be let down so monumentously, to have somebody say that they don't care about your experiences and not essentially invalidate them by saying that I can accurately portray what it is to be a Black woman and live a Black experience is just another level of bullshit and fuckery that I don't even know. This was around the time that I really started to fall out of love with musical theater. I thought, this is just not what I thought it was going to be, and this is not what I want to get into if this is what it's going to be. it definitely tainted my outlook on getting an education in musical theater as I slowly but surely started to think to myself, I don't want to be a part of a business that prides itself on celebrating those who are different and those who are marginalized, and then taking advantage of them, silencing them, embarrassing them, making them feel small, making them feel less than. It was all very overwhelming. And here's the thing, every person in the program had to audition for the shows. So every single there wasn't an issue of, well, the Black people didn't come out, they didn't show out, they didn't show up. We were always there, always auditioning. There just wasn't the space because it wasn't made. So when we're doing a show about slavery, there is a slave track, which will be played by a Black person, but then there are ensemble tracks, and there are no other Black people in the show. And then the two Black girls from my class, or me and then my friend, are asked to assist musically on the show, along with another white student. But then the white student who's asked to musically assist gets promoted to be in the show. So there were supposed to be 3 musical assistants, myself, my Black girlfriend, and my white friend. My white friend gets promoted to be in the show. So now he's in the show. Another white person in this already starkly white cast. And then I'm the musical assistant, and I'm sitting there, smile on my face, trying to be, accepting and polite and make a good impression, per usual. The director of the show turns to me during one rehearsal and she says to me, "Can you do me a favor? Can you go on Google and find me a photo of the Underground Railroad? Thanks." I'm like, no, that's because there are no photos of the Underground Railroad. Blink, blink. So they were slaves, and they didn't have cameras, and oh yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, well, I'm Canadian, so I didn't know. Thank you, though. This is the head of our program asking me for a picture of the Underground Railroad, and I have to be the one to explain to her, again, in a room full of people, that no such thing exists. And if it's not gonna be on Google Images, my God. And her ignorance was then supposed to be absolved because of her whiteness. But it's alarming to me that so many people in positions of power, the head of the program, the teacher of history and rep, have unbounded levels of ignorance towards Black issues and on Black topics, and they are so reckless with it. A part of the educational experience when you are working towards getting this degree and becoming a performer is being given the opportunity to perform on stage in front of people, go through the rehearsal process and perform. I was given this opportunity on a major scale 3 times, one of which was given to me by the acting program. Now, the acting program and the musical theater program are completely separate. The acting students do not and are not allowed to try out for the musical theater shows and vice versa. I was given the opportunity to audition for Hair the Musical, which was being put on by the acting program my sophomore year, because in the middle of auditions, it had to have been like 8:30 p.m., like on a random weekday, they realized that they did not have enough Black students to put on the production. So they sent an email to the head of the musical theater program, who then in turn sent an email to all of the Black students in the musical theater program and said, "Go grab your book and run over to the Performing Arts building to floor number 3. And they're seeing all the Black students now because they need Black people." So I went and I auditioned because I wasn't getting any opportunities in the musical theater program. And they cast me. And so I was given my first opportunity to perform in a major production at Pace University from the acting department because they didn't have enough Black people. And then my last major production opportunity at Pace came my senior year, in which I auditioned for Michael John LaCuise's The Wild Party. I received the most callbacks out of all the women in the program for The Wild Party. And then I found myself swinging a sophomore and a junior. The role that I swung for this junior was supposed to be played by a Black woman. I was not cast. The girl that was cast in this role does not identify as Black at all. And she is of fair skin. And she was younger than me. They both were. So it was an interesting experience, to say the least. That was when my soul was crushed. I had already been through it up until that point, at Pace and then in my own personal life. And I was a senior, and I thought, like, this could be my final opportunity to, prove to myself that this is what I'm meant to do. I'm graduating soon, and I would just love to, like, feel my oats in a part. And that never happened. I really, really pushed myself to constantly be confident and cool and calm and collected no matter what. But after this experience of being propped up for a moment and then being knocked back down and told that I literally that I wasn't good enough to be cast in the show, even though I had spent years proving myself in class and in other performances up until that point, I went into an extremely deep depression. Figured, no, I'm not good enough. Like, there wasn't anybody that could tell me that I was. Nobody. And I really, became a different person during that period of my life. After graduating college, I became this wild, crazy perfectionist, pushing myself to no end to make everything that I do and that I create as perfect as humanly possible, so that I know that if I am not accepted, that it was not my fault. But that's literally impossible. The phrase that continues to stand out to me in this time is implicit bias. These teachers thought that because they lived in New York City and they had Black friends and they had successful Black students over the years, that there was no way that they could ever be a part of fostering such an unsafe space. They thought there was no way that they could be complicit in such grossly unfair treatment of Black students. They did not address, their own internalized ideas and, preconceived notions about Black people. And, it all is left untouched, and it's covered with a lot of, but I've done this and I've been here and I'm friends with these people, and they're, we live in a racist society. We internalize racism from the time that we are young. It is never addressed, the fact that because we live in a racist society and we are socialized and we internalize this racism, that it takes years of unconditioning to undo these biases that we have. If you spend years being told, being embarrassed by teachers and constantly being met with ignorance about your humanity and your experience by teachers, and then furthermore, seeing with your own eyes that there is no space made for Black people, how am I supposed to go out into the world with an open heart and an open mind and not riddled with constant concerns and anxieties about how I'm being perceived and, you know, ultimately where I'm going to end up in life without, you know, the thought of, well, hopefully I just get lucky. Hopefully I just come across somebody who isn't as ignorant and, you know, has done some work on deconditioning the internalized racism that we are all socialized with as we grow up in a racist society. Hopefully I come across somebody who is willing to see me as a human being and not as a token or as, you know, a problem that needs to be solved. Or as confusing. It's unfortunate that my experience was tainted by your inexperience and your inability to take responsibility for your lack of awareness. You don't just, you know, turn 25 or whatever and you have a group of Black friends and you did a play with a Black person and now you get it. It's work. If you spend, you know, however many long years you have being conditioned in a society that is racist, you need to spend that same exact amount of time deconditioning. The effect of you know, consistently being bombarded with ignorance was my own mental and emotional deterioration and me almost completely falling out of love with the one thing that I was born to do. When I got to PACE, there were people who had like performance anxiety, and I was like, oh my God, like that's awful. I've never felt that a day before in my life. And then when I left school, I have horrible performance anxiety now. It's unreal. And I constantly question if I should be doing this at all, if it's for me, if I smiled enough, if I am giving off a positive energy, that still really like sits with me in the back of my head. I don't know, I'm just so conscious about everything that I do. I think about everything. It shouldn't be like that. I should exist. But I'm thinking all the time, always thinking, always questioning. Yeah. Kind of putting it all together really and remembering that these things happened to me. A lot of it, like I you know, blacked out, shut out, and I don't really reflect on my time at PACE at all, except for my senior year, which was like supremely devastating, and it still hurts my feelings a little bit. I don't really know that I can even say that I've healed all the way because I have such bad performance anxiety, and I really have worked very hard to try to present myself as the person that I wish that I had become by this point, pretty much. In my mind, it's like I wasn't supposed to have all of these issues with myself as a performer. I'm supposed to trust myself, and I'm supposed to be happy with what it is that I'm doing and trust that I, you know, if I'm doing the work, then that's enough. But unfortunately, that hasn't always been the case. It's almost like I feel silly for like even thinking about these things or talking about them, because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're being so dramatic. So accepting that these things happen and that I'm not being a drama queen about it, and that they were actual real hurtful things that have thus affected me in my real life has allowed me to start the process of moving on. Yeah.